Hello and welcome to this special series of episodes called 29 Days of Magic. During Black History Month, the month of February, I'll be interviewing a Black woman a day who's from business and entrepreneurship. You name it, I'm going to have a chat with her. The idea for this is to show off the amazingness of Black women throughout various industries. I hope you take a listen, like, share, review, and be inspired by these incredible stories. Take a listen. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Munoz, CEO of the cultural communications agency, The Flash. Each episode, I bring on a different business leader who's doing some game-changing work. And this episode is no different. I am so excited to have Colette Ellis, who is the founder of the company Start Within Coaching, as well as the Libbie Chatbot. I want to talk about a whole bunch of fun things that she's been doing, her really unique career journey, and so much more. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Colette.
Hey, Laura. How are you?
Oh, just plugging along, interviewing people like a mad woman. Almost there. But it's been a delight over the 29 Days of Magic program. So I'm so excited to learn just more and more and more from great women like yourself. So it's super duper rewarding. And the podcast always has the same first question. So I'm excited to hear your answer. So Colette, what was your first job?
Ooh, my first job. Wow, I can't think back that far.
It can be any one you want. It could be your paper route. It could be your first undergrad. It doesn't matter.
Well, okay. So yeah, I did not have a paper route. I grew up in the Bronx, New York. So no, I was not delivering newspapers in the Bronx. I was a work study student in college. So I worked everywhere from the dining hall to the Hood Museum, which I think that was probably my favorite job on campus, being able to see all of the art and have that back end view of the museum.
Oh, nice. And what were you doing when you worked for the museum?
I was working with the curator at the time. And so it was just really learning all about the collections and learning about how they find new art to bring into the museum. And the museum has since been renovated, and it's amazing. Last time I was up on campus, it was just so amazing to see. And then also now as an alum to be able to see, how many alumni have art now in that Hood Museum at Dartmouth College.
Oh, so you ended up going to Dartmouth. Interesting.
I did, yes.
So I have a funny Dartmouth story for you.
Oh, cool.
So I turned down a full ride to Dartmouth because my mom made me.
Oh, man.
Basically, I went on one of those you're a very smart black child retreats.
Yes. The Discover Dartmouth weekend. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I took the bus up there with 60 other kids, and we did the weekend, and it was cool. It was my very first time away from my parents overnight at age 17.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're Caribbean, so no sleepovers ever in my life. And I loved it. It was really cool, except for the trip back, where our bus broke down somewhere in Bumblehick, Massachusetts, I want to say. And we all had to get off the bus because the bus was smoking.
Oh, no.
So imagine you have 50, 60 young black kids in the middle of nowhere, waiting for a bus, and then go into one of these little diners that's right there. Mm-hmm. It was the scene from a Western where when someone walks through the kind of panel doors and everyone kind of turns and looks and drops the cutlery and looks at you, and you're like, right. Oh, damn, this is not good.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a culture shock because I think I grew up rather sheltered. And I thought it was funny. I was like, this is wild. I made the mistake of telling my mom this story. And she was
there you go.
She's like, so if your car were to break down, you could be somewhere like that and you might not be able to get home ever. No, you're not doing this. I'm like, but Mom.
So hence the reason I did not go to Dartmouth. But I have a bunch
Yes.
of friends who went on the trip and still went. So, and they turned out fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we laugh, but so I guess in those days it would have been riding the bus while black or entering a diner while black. So
Entering the diner
yeah,
while black, yes.
I can relate. I mean, fortunately, I never had the car trouble experience. But yeah, I think what I will say about that experience is that it did shape or begin to shape my political views. Just again, right, I'm from New York City, grew up in the Bronx, so yes, it was culture shock in many ways for me as well. So I think that it is interesting how our experiences shape us, and those experiences that we carry with us. Like I was that kind of person where certain experiences like that made me more defiant. Like, oh, you're going to look at me like that? Yeah, well, that's like, and it's interesting, like how we all respond to what's happening around us, and in different ways at different times in our lives, right? Sometimes we can be more defiant, sometimes we can be more afraid, right? So it, you just never know how it's all going to shape out.
Yeah, I mean, I often think like, how would my career have been drastically different had I gone to Dartmouth? Because basically, I would have gone 4 years, no student loan debt. I mean, I ended up going to NYU, so like no slouch either.
Yeah.
Um, but it's interesting to think about because my three friends who went, one's a doctor, two of them are lawyers, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I wanted to be a lawyer from like Perry Mason and Columbo days as a little kid.
Yeah, I did
And
too.
so, yeah, I think it was the thing that little black girls wanted to be. And it's just fascinating to think about, you know, I'm so grateful for the journey because it also like reminded me that like, even though like grew up upper middle class on Long Island, was going to private school, like that was one of the first, like, you're still black
Mm-hmm.
experiences that I had. And I think it's part of the reason why I do the work that I do now, whereby like, I want to make sure that there's space and comfort and a welcome for everyone so that younger than me don't have to go through that.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, and my first experience of I'm still black was actually in high school. That experience of being, the short story is that the many of the people that were accepted into Dartmouth from my high school class, we were all black women, or at least the ones that I knew of, in our inner circle. And our valedictorian of the high school had applied and had not gotten in, and he is a young Jewish guy at the time. So and it was weird because no one ever said it, right? It wasn't ever
Right.
voiced like, oh, you got in because, but that was that first time where I thought, well, I am smart. I did earn it. But then you have that questioning of, oh, wait, did I really earn it? Am I really smart? Right. And so yeah, so the work that I do now with coaching and all the healing work, right? I think it is based on those previous experiences of not wanting people to have to go through that again.
It's always fascinating to see how like the things that happen when you're a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
and the decisions that you make. It's part of the reason why I always ask the first job question because the first jobs, everyone sort of pops into people's heads, always is endemic of where they are right now. Because the lessons they learned, the way they interacted, the things they learned, okay, I won't do that ever again. Or yes, I will absolutely love people, or I absolutely hate people, so I'll never work in that industry. Always gonna come through whenever we chat about the podcast. So it is fascinating to see where folks end up landing. So we go from working in the museum to now. What's that career sort of been like?
how
A
how
short one,
long
I'm sure.
how long is your show? No. uh,
Well, half an hour.
yeah, right. I mean, so I hinted at, right. So I had also had those goals of being a lawyer. That's what I thought. If you had asked me when I graduated from Dartmouth, I worked at the DA's office here in New York City. I worked in a law firm in New York City. And I think that that was another one of those pivotal moments where I just the experience of being in a big law firm. And I always remember that the one experience that always sticks in my head is the first time I worked, over 24 hours, and you're obviously in the office, like at that time, like didn't have no change of clothes, right? So you're obviously in the same clothes, and the only focus is on, did it get done, right? There's no focus on the human, right? The person, as in, how are you? Did you get some sleep? Blah, 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 blah. So those were those first moments of like, I really love the law. I mean, I studied constitutional law. I was a law team girl in high school, right? So like you, Perry Mason, yeah, law. What was the LA Law? All those shows, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be the prosecutor. But then that was when it shifted to, okay, if this isn't the right environment, now what, right? If I'm not going to go to law school. And so then I pivoted into nonprofit work. And so that's when I started doing training and development, although I didn't know that's what it was, right? Because it wasn't on the HR side. It wasn't until I went into corporate that it became, oh, this is HR. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know. I thought it was just teaching people how to do stuff. So so I moved into training in HR, and then I would say 2011 was when I got my first certification in coping with work and family stress. And that was the pivot into health and wellness. And I think the other pieces to the story was I've had about 3 experiences in my long career of working for other organizations where I was either, downsized, right-sized, left-sized, whatever you want to call it. And so in each of those situations, I needed to, I guess by the second one, you're like, oh, you're finding your next opportunity. You're finding your next opportunity. And by the last one, I was like, well, let me just see if I could find a way to do something that I enjoy on my own. Right. And that's the short answer to how I started, building my own practice and becoming an entrepreneur. So I was not didn't have the paper route, didn't always think like, oh, I'm going to run my own business. Like I said, at 17, 18, you would ask me, I said, I'm going to be a lawyer. So it has definitely been a winding journey to get to this point of managing the coaching and consulting and now building Libbie, the chatbot.
So let's talk about that, because I think, in every entrepreneur's path is usually the same, as in there is no path. It just you get there along your at your own pace, at your own way, for your own reasons. And then once you're there, you know that you're there. Like that. It's like, okay, no going back. I will do this on my own. What was that moment for you where you're like, yep, I'm not going back. This is entrepreneurship is the road for me.
Right. So to flush that out a little bit more, I think it was, like I said, the third time of being downsized, and started that original process of, interviewing to find the next opportunity. And then at the same time was having conversations with people about, projects, like project work, which, this wasn't the gig economy then. So this was, I guess I'll date myself, this was 2004. So it wasn't automatic that you would just, oh, of course you're just going to do your own thing. So it felt much more like a risk then than maybe it does for people now. And I remember feeling like, even if I didn't get the gig, it felt so much better to have conversations about their needs, their goals. It was like a conversation about possibility, like, oh, you're trying to do this. Maybe I can help you do that, versus interviewing for a job always felt like, how can I cram my square peg into your round hole? And just, I just got tired of that conversation, which to me always felt more like a deficit conversation, right? Like them trying to size me up to see, like, okay, does she have what it takes to do here? And I know, that's not exactly how it is, but at least in my mind, that's what it felt like. So I said, okay, I want to lean more towards possibility. And I don't know what that exactly is going to look like, because that last role was in e-learning. So it wasn't like I could be like, hey, I'm going to design e-learning for you. But I wanted to figure out what are the ways that I can help people, help organizations to thrive. And to me, that was more of an exciting possibility than trying to find another role within an organization.
Awesome. And so now that you're a coach, I feel like, there's never been a better time for people to go out and seek coaches because everything's crazy right now. So tell us about like what sort of when do you think you need one, and what makes you unique?
Great questions. I believe that you can need one, quote unquote, at any time, right? I think there's also been this move towards, and I think particularly within organizations, it's important to emphasize this, right? Sometimes within organizations, except for say executive coaching, right, where in that realm it's kind of understood that coaching can be for growth and creating new possibilities. In other cases, it's often been, oh, right, it's part of that. This could be on your exit out. Like if we can't get this right, work with this coach. And if that doesn't work, you're out of here. And I think that that's a misconception around coaching, right? If you think about athletic coaches, right, they work with teams and athletes throughout the whole journey, and it's about amplifying performance and identifying strengths and finding ways to work on areas of improvement. So I think it can be at any time, and I think so then the difference is, right, am I able to get this through my organization, or am I searching or seeking for this on my own? And so then there might be a difference as to, okay, is there something in particular, like a goal that you're seeking to accomplish if it's on the career side? And then on the life and wellness side, again, unfortunately, sometimes it's I had a setback, right? Oh, my relationship ended, or, oh, now I'm in transition. Or, oh, there's a pandemic that happened, right? So I think it's, and that's okay. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way, right? I think we as humans, we do tend to respond to negative situations. There are some of us that, proactively seek out coaching and help. And then others of us, it is, right? I like to say for me, like when the rug gets pulled out from under you and then you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, I need some help with that.
And then what's sort of the kind of thought process of like, okay, now I've got a coach. How do I take all my great learnings from my coach and actually implement them? So I think sometimes folks think that coaches are therapists, or they're just. I think there's so much out there, and people get totally confused.
Right.
And you definitely have a really unique way about your approach. So I think how you approach it when dealing with clients would be super duper helpful for folks to understand.
Sure. And in 2016 was when I pivoted again and launched the Start Within coaching services, and really aiming to focus to work with women of color because of some of those unique experiences that we mentioned at the start, whether that's on the personal side of dealing with forms of discrimination, as well as on the professional side of dealing with, microaggressions in the workplace and opportunities for advancement, and how all of that impacts our mental health and well-being. So that is the focus, and that is the mission behind it. And it is based, the desire to do that again is based on my experiences. And so, yeah, that lens of looking at it. And that's also the foundation and the lens for Libbie, using a form of healing called EFT tapping, or emotional freedom technique, to help women of color to be able to release the stress and the anxiety and the trauma that we go through in our daily lives.
That's so helpful. And thinking about this past year, what's that world been like for you as a coach and your clients? Because I know I couldn't have made it through 2020 without my coach.
Right.
How's that been for you? Because obviously, I'm guessing you were really busy.
Yeah, I mean, well, on a personal side, I also have been solo quarantining in a way throughout this whole time. So right, like you say, in terms of where I have been able to find support, whether that's through coaching or other ways, other healing practices for myself. So I definitely have aimed to walk my talk during this past year. I think, I mean, we all know this, right? 2020 exposed so many things. We were dealing with COVID-19 and the pandemic and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and all of and some of those things, right? Those things were happening before 2020, but it's that sense of this hyper focus on it. And so I think that people are going through all sorts of experiences. You know, there is the trauma of witnessing these things and seeing these videos and watching it on online or on TV or wherever, and then what happens when people aren't held accountable for their actions, right? Or when we know that COVID-19 is impacting communities of color more than other communities, right? So I think we're dealing with a lot. And then compounding that by, okay, how do you manage your own health and well-being? How do you ensure that your family is staying safe? Oh, now I'm working from home. And oh, the thing that I've talked about also with clients is, you know, Zoom being wonderful and allowing us to stay connected. And at the same time, thinking about you're now bringing your workplace into your home in many ways, right? Because now we're it's not like before where it's like, okay, even if there was something bad that happened, you're like, okay, I could leave that at the office, right? And then come home. But now there's the aspect of, okay, you're bringing your home into your house. So how is it that you create space for yourself? How is it that you ground, and how is it that you unplug after those experiences? And that's not to say, even if it's not a negative experience working, just that sense of how do you maintain your boundaries when everything may be happening all in the same space?
That's the truth. I mean, it's been so weird. I think we just all have been like, how do we navigate all of this? How do we survive it? And also I think, you know, an interesting thing that I'm kind of seeing is that as we're coming up on the year of this, that folks are hitting a wall.
Right.
And very much, even I think even myself, I was like, oh God, really? I was like, this. And how do you navigate that and kind of push through to kind of find, you know, that next step is not easy.
It's not. It's not.
And so, you know, it's interesting because now I'd love for you to talk about Libbie, because I think these two sort of play well together.
Absolutely. So for those listeners who may not be familiar with EFT, or emotional freedom technique, also called tapping, is a form of counseling that combines lots of evidence-based modalities, which I love. So if you think of acupuncture, you might think of NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, as well as energy medicine. So what does all of that mean? It basically means you're using your fingertips to tap on meridian points. So primarily in your head and upper body. And you're also speaking about your issue. So for example, I would, if we went back to your earlier example, Laura, so you're in the diner and you'd be tapping like, I can't believe they're staring at me. Why are they looking at us? When are we going to be able to get back on the bus? And as you'd be saying those things, you'd be tapping on points. And it's this combination, it's a form of somatic healing by speaking the issue and tapping on the points at the same time. It helps to relieve the stress, the anxiety, because we all know that the mind and body are connected. And so that's why I love this form of healing. And so it's something that I share with clients individually through our coaching sessions. And I also do group programming. So back in 2019 I had this first idea around, well, you know, interesting about tapping, because a lot or many people will know it, but they don't necessarily always do it. When I would ask, like in workshops, like how many of you know it, you might get half of the room. And then I would ask, okay, those of you that know it, how many of you do it on a regular basis? And it would be like, yeah, right. My therapist said I should. Oh, right. I did this. So I started to think, like, is there a way to develop a tool that would support people in being able to tap on a more regular basis? And when I thought about it, it was like, oh, okay, the points don't change. Lots of things about tapping doesn't change. So that's when I thought, maybe a chatbot. And then the idea kind of went away a little bit. And then cut to 2020, and I had actually mentioned this to a friend who is another healer and yoga instructor, but who had since become a teacher. And she said, have you built that thing yet? Because I would love to have it on a tablet and use it with my kids. And I was kind of like, yeah, no, I haven't yet. So that reinvigorated the idea. And then, like I said, COVID happened, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. And that's when really became the pivot to, okay, let's build this for women of color as a way to release this stress and anxiety. And that's how Libbie was created. And right now we're in a beta test for users to test the web version of Libbie to be able to tap with it. And so we can train Libbie to be more smart and help more women.
Awesome. And so, can anyone figure out how to do the tapping, or is it require someone to essentially guide them on how to do it?
What you need for tapping really is to understand where the points are, right? So once you know where the points are, and it's definitely something that you can do on your own, and you can do it with guidance. So there are videos out there, like I said, events, working with practitioners. And that was the reason to create Libbie as another way, because the other aspect that's really helpful is when you watch a video, it's great, but you're then repeating what someone has already recorded in a video saying, versus as you do it with yourself or with a practitioner or with Libbie, you are speaking more about your own personal issues, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Makes total sense. Awesome. So, no, in kind of doing all this work, tell me about a time where you were had a challenge and you're like, there's no way I'm going to figure this out. And then you did. We're so excited to have Soho Works as the sponsor for the 29 Days of Magic campaign. They're designed by Soho House, and their workspaces to help creative thinkers, businesses small and large, connect, collaborate, and grow. And it's where I'm recording all the episodes of 29 Days of Magic. It's a safe, wonderful, and collaborative experience. I'm currently in the Brooklyn location, but they have locations, one else in New York City, in the Meatpacking District, one in LA, 5 in the UK, and they give you that kind of home away from home feeling with all the tools, technology, equipment to help you do your best work. Like I said, it's an amazing location, feels safe. I've been able to meet some really awesome people, which you haven't been able to do a lot because of the fact of COVID. So it's been a wonderful experience being able to record here and help build community. So if you want to find out more information about it, please go to sohoworks.com to get more information and tell them I sent you. And now back to the show.
So that would be yesterday? No, just kidding.
Every day of the pandemic, yes.
Yeah, I was like, as an entrepreneur, isn't that don't we do that every day?
No. Every damn day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the experience of bringing Libbie to life is one of those, because I am becoming a tech founder, although, and I did build the initial wireframe of Libbie so that I could demo it and share it with potential users. But I'm not a tech person by training. So that's why it has taken a little bit to bring it to this point. And it was one of those wonderful serendipity moments. I was actually pitching Libbie at an event, and a conversation designer reached out to me after that event and said, hey, this sounds great. I'd love to work with you on this. And that's how we got to our first prototype. So yes, that sense of how do you keep your motivation and your desire going, right? That's the challenge. and then continue to share what your vision is, share what your goals are in a way that then attracts other people to want to be part of that story.
That is so true. It's such a struggle to figure it all out. You're like, oh gosh. And getting people to come along on the ride for you is really the hardest part about all of it. So I totally get it. But it's thinking about that and navigating that, but then also you have to work with clients who need your help on a daily basis, especially in the middle of the pandemic. What in the world do you do for self-care?
Well, I do actually tap. So that is, I do tapping. I'm also a big fan of essential oils. So I use a lot of essential oils. I have a book, I like to call it a bookend meditation practice. So at the start of my day and at the end of my day at night, meditating. The one thing that I'm longing to do again, though, is getting back to the beach. The beach is my happy place, and I did not take any form of transportation out to the beach last summer, and that was sad. So that I'm looking forward to getting out to Rockaway at least. I don't even want to say at least once. I'm going to the beach this year, 2021. That's it.
Yeah, because you have to. You absolutely have to, because gosh, otherwise, like, to inhale some of the fresh air and water that comes off of the beach is necessary.
Yes,
because we've all been kind of cooped up inside. So I am with you on that one as well. Because it's been a lot. So
it has.
I get it.
Has.
Looking back on what you've done over the last, parts of your career, what do you think you'd tell 25-year-old Colette?
That's a great question. Then I have to sort of do in my head, like, what was 25-year-old Colette doing at the time?
causing trouble, probably.
Probably. Hopefully she was causing trouble. Good trouble, right? That's what John Lewis says, right? We all need to get into some good trouble. I would say it's almost like you don't even know, right? Because I wouldn't have been, I'm not doing exactly what I was doing then now, but yeah, keep open, keep searching, keep seeking. It's going to look differently than you think it will, and yet it will still be good.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think, when you look back on it all, you're like, all right, there was some really good stuff here.
Right. Yeah. And I think because it's that sense of, and at that time at 25, right, like, was I even thinking entrepreneurship, right? So that's why the different paths, right, that the non-traditional paths have value. And that's something I think I still aim to tell myself now, right? Because looking back and seeing people who have taken more traditional paths and thinking, did I miss something, right? But no, I've taken this path and I still don't know where exactly it's going to lead, but it's still going to be good.
Well, that's the thing I think is so important for folks to hear. And it's why I always ask this question, because I want people to understand that, like, the road isn't going to be the same for everyone. The grass is not greener. It's just grass. And the journey is the fun part about this. And you don't need a defined path. You don't have to have everything solved by the time you're 30 or 35 or even 40. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and trying and doing the best that you can, and owning up to what you got to do. And you're on your way.
Exactly.
Awesome. And so the last question for you, do you have a give and an ask of the audience?
Very cool. Well, if you are what we call BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, or other woman of color, we would love for you to join the beta test to test Libbie and get some healing through EFT tapping. And we'll share that information with Laura and her team to make sure that you know how to sign up for that. And that's technically it's an offer and an ask, right? Like, so you're gaining some health and some healing, and we would be getting some very crucial and valuable feedback to be building something that you want and that you need and that you can use. And on the coaching side, I also do offer a complimentary discovery call to see if the type of life and health coaching that I do could be a right fit for you.
Awesome. And we will put all those details in the show notes for folks to check it out, because I think I am fascinated. I want to try it. So I'm going to sign up for the beta. I do fall into the bucket. So I definitely want to try it out. And Colette, oh my gosh, you're just so chock full of this wonderful energy and wisdom. It's such a delight to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Laura. And I applaud and appreciate all that you have been doing with this wonderful feature on Fantastic Women. So kudos to you as well.
Thanks so much. And that is our show.